Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Goin Digital Show, the podcast for K-12 school leaders. I'm your host, Greg Goins, a K-12 school superintendent in Southern Illinois. We're so glad to have everyone with us tonight live on the TeachCal Network. As always, you can connect with us a couple different ways. The best way is to use the EduLive hashtag on Twitter. Our guest and myself would all love to hear your thoughts and comments. If you have questions for us, send them our way. We'll do our best to interact with you during the show. This is actually episode number 7, so Goin Digital is rolling right along, and tonight the topic is the innovative school leader. And tonight we have some outstanding elementary principals and some of the most innovative school leaders that you're going to find throughout the country. We have Michael Berry, a principal in the state of Vermont. We have Brad Gustafson, a principal in the state of Minnesota. And we have Amber Tiemann, a principal in the Lone Star State of Texas. So welcome to you all. Welcome to Goin Digital.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
All right, let's kick things off tonight. If you could, let's just kind of go around the horn here, and we'll start with the ladies first. Tell us a little bit about your background, and tell us about your school district.
All right. Well, I'm in my 13th year in education, and this is my first year as an elementary principal. It's my second year in my district of Wiley ISD. We have 10 elementary schools and 6 intermediate junior highs and 2 high schools, so about 16,000 kids, and just pretty awesome all the way around. My school is Witt Elementary, and I have 594 of the cutest K-4 kids around, and just loving it all.
Great. Michael, let's jump to. Tell us about your school district and about your background.
Sure. I started off as a kindergarten teacher and moved into principalship, and I've been at my current school for 5 years. We're a pre-K through 4 school, about 300 students. Amazing school in central Vermont, and we just love learning.
All right, very good. Brad, can you give us a signature call tonight?
Hi-oh! Let's break it down. K-5 school in Minnesota, if Amber has the cutest kids, we have the hardiest kids because it gets cold here. We have 858 kids. This is my 6th year at Greenwood, 8th year in the principalship.
All right, good deal. Well, as you know, October is a huge month in education. We have two things going on simultaneously. This is Connected Educator Month, and we are all connected educators, or we wouldn't be here tonight with 4 states represented on the Goin Digital Show. But October is also National Principals Month, and so we want to send a big shout out and a thank you to all of our principals throughout the country that are watching. I personally want to thank the principals in my school district for the job they do. I think you are all unsung heroes, so job well done to all of you. But as we talk about being connected educators, you know, we throw this term around a lot, lead learner. And I probably first picked that up from Tony Sinanis, who, as we know, couldn't be here, but he'll be coming back in the future. And when I first saw that, that really kind of changed my thought process in terms of how the role of the principal has evolved. Can you just talk about that a little bit? And let's start with you, Michael.
Well, I think the role has changed. It changes daily. I always kind of laugh when somebody asks me what my typical day looks like, and I'll let them know when it actually happens. Not only is it that learning component, but I find now I think that we're evolving more into instructional leadership than we ever have been. And I think all 4 of us here would all agree that in a lot of ways the technology that we're doing has really helped us to do that better, and that's surprising to a lot of people. So that's been a pretty amazing evolution for the leadership position, I think.
Good point. Brad, what do you think?
So principals have always been instructional leaders, and probably long ago maybe more managerial, although I wasn't around back then. But to be sure, we believe we're instructional leaders. The challenge for today's leaders is, what does it mean to be an instructional leader in the digital age? Because it's distinctly different than how the principalship was 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So for me personally, it boils down to pedagogy. What is a connected pedagogy? How do we lead it? How do we model it? And how do we instill that culture in our kids so they can tap into the promises of a digitally connected era?
Very good. Amber?
I heard a really great speaker this past week, and everything he said was just amazing. He had 42 years in the business, and it was just everything he said. I was scribbling down, and then he got to social media, and he said, oh, just be careful if you're going to do it. I mean, I just don't even know if you should risk it. and my heart just sank because that is such the wrong message. I think all of us are really great examples of the fact that channel that power and use it for good. Like Brad said, how are we modeling how to be intelligent and promote the positives and share our story in the most positive way, since we are the people on the ground. Michael said our days are different and they're full of really great things. We need to channel that and be able to utilize being a connected educator to develop these kinds of relationships and help get our story out there. And it's just such a great age that we have all these tools that enable us to do it. Let's not be scared of them.
Go ahead, Brad. Did you have something, Brad?
Oh, am I that transparent? I was thinking and agreeing with Amber, but yeah. Well, I'm bouncing back and forth from a PTA meeting tonight, and on one trip to the media center, I had a parent stop me and just say, "Thanks for sharing all those tweets." And I'm like, it just caught me off guard. I'm like, "What? Thanks for being thankful." And then I had to ask, I'm like, what do you like, or tell me why are you thankful? And she just shared a little bit about how we talk about just modeling failure and how we respond from that, how we talk about personalized PD and some of the things that I'm really tweeting about. So that kind of verified that she actually reads the tweets. But I just thought how powerful for a school to be able to release snippets and really shine the light on student learning and the amazing work that staff are doing above and beyond a weekly or monthly paper newsletter or even an email. We can, on a daily basis, send multiple video snippets and things that not only share the awesome things our kids are doing, but increase parent capacity, build partnerships, and just show the great things kids are capable of. So collectively, by being connected, we're actually raising the bar.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and I'm sure at some point throughout the night we're going to talk about, it's our responsibility as school leaders to be that storyteller in chief and to be responsible for branding the district and having that district digital footprint. And Amber, I know that's something that you go out and you present, you speak a lot. Just talk about the importance of, highlighting all the great things kids are doing in your school and really schools all over the place.
I think it's important for us to keep in mind that the more people know you, the more they're going to like you. The more that they think that they have a connection with you, the more they're going to appreciate what you put in. And one way that we can do that is, like Brad said, is to be transparent and take down those walls. And I know my superintendent right now is a phenomenal model of this. It's hard to say that either he or I are not completely involved in everything that happens at our campus, because you're seeing it all day long. We're tweeting it, we're Facebooking it, we're sharing with parents selfies of kids working in the hall or out at recess doing things. We're in classrooms, we're at events. I went to a big church thing on Sunday, and I thought, I got to get a picture with all my kids so I can share all the awesome things that our kids are doing. It creates this awareness for the community of everything that's happening in your building. You don't drop your kid to me at 7:30 and pick them up at 2:30 and have no idea what happened. You get to say, hey, tell me about that matter lesson. Oh my goodness, I saw you guys doing math problems in the hallway. What's that about? Parents have an opportunity to ask legit questions, not just, how was school today?
And I think as we think in terms of professional growth, even as school leaders, we need professional development opportunities as well. And there's really no better place to do that now than the social media space. And I tell people all the time, it's not just about making connections, but it's also about grabbing those great ideas you find from your PLN and taking those back into your school district and actually putting those to life and implementing those and having similar success. So could maybe you share one or two things that you actually got from your PLN that you were able to go back and build upon and really be successful with? We could start with anybody.
I'll start with Brad, because Brad had to give me some TouchCast tutorials at the beginning of the year, from troubleshooting with my technology department to actually making it happen, wanting to just kind of recreate some of the magic that he's done. I think there's probably something every day that I could take back from the awesome people that we surround ourselves with. You talk about Tony Sinanis, Joe Sanfilippo, Kurt Reese, George Kuros. There's always something on Twitter, and that's the really great thing now. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have Twitter, that you get to see it in action, and then you get to tweak it and make it work and be fabulous for your school.
Yeah. Michael, what's your take on that?
I think I agree 100%. I couldn't name just one thing. And actually, Brad just tweeted something tonight about a mobile makerspace that I snagged right away. But I think the other thing that I've seen, the more that we're modeling this, even on a local level, there's more connections. Within the building, people know what's going on within the building. Across schools in our district, people are connecting and knowing that, hey, there's a person 10 miles down the road that's doing this amazing thing with STEM education. I don't need to go to New York City to see that. I can go down and talk to this colleague that I didn't even know was doing this work. So we're knocking down those walls even on a local level with social media.
Brad, what are a couple things you picked up?
Yeah, well, what Michael alluded to was the student opportunities. So if someone tweets something out or shares it via Voxer, we can pick and choose what fits our culture, maybe make it our own, and then just give that experience to our students. I remember I was walking down the hall, I saw some students creating a Genius Hour podcast, and I asked them a few questions, and it was pretty cool. They had they figured out or researched a way to solve a Rubik's Cube in less than a minute, and I guess there's some math algorithms that go with that. So I went about my business, went back to the office, checked Twitter later in the day, and their teacher had tweeted out an example of their Genius Hour project and presentation, and I thought, that's pretty cool, because I knew the backstory. I had talked to them earlier in the hall, and then here I'm seeing it on Twitter and on our school hashtag. Well, come to find out, a school in New Jersey contacted them and wanted our kiddos to teach them how to do it as well. So the teacher hooked up a GHO, Google Hangout video conference, and our kids were the teachers, and it kind of kicked off by the school in New Jersey saying, what can you teach us? So there's an example above and beyond the selfies and the relationship and that positive energy, but actually channeling it into our kids impacting the world and then increasing their own self-efficacy, and just it's a whole new learning paradigm, and being connected myself can give that to our kids.
And another thing that I find fascinating in this digital age of technology is we have access to so many tools, but the really cool thing about it is we all have the same access. I mean, I have the same access to Periscope as Michael does in his state and Amber does in her state, but it's how we leverage those tools that really maybe separates the more innovative leaders from those that are maybe not connected yet. So what does that term innovative actually mean to you, and how would you describe maybe even what you're doing in your school district as why you think it's innovative? Michael, let's start with you.
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I define innovation as just bravery and taking risks. And from those risks, there's failures and there's successes, and you just learn and keep going. And I think one of the things that we're doing that is innovative is just trying things out, just taking risks, and like Brad had said, making those connections. I've been amazed every time we put something out and a connection happens. It's just so powerful that it leads to more innovations, and that's kind of our formula, is to break down the walls and make those connections so innovations can grow. So an example is we tweeted something about this STEM project at another school, and all of the educators in the different schools started connecting and visiting, and it created this whole new thing for us, which wouldn't have happened if we weren't sharing.
Great. Amber?
Well, this being my first year, I'm really trying hard to remember that I'm new and that I've got to build these relationships and make connections. So a lot of the innovation that we're trying to do, I'm trying to empower my teachers to take those risks. And we've got classrooms that are tweeting now. We've got we're doing something similar to what Brad and Tony do with the videos and students coming in and telling us about what they're learning. And those are all new things for my community, and they're loving it. They think it's great. Again, just because it's about their kids, it's not about me. We have Think College Thursday every Thursday, and our students wear college T-shirts. Totally normal, right? But my teachers are tweeting at colleges, and so it's so much fun to have their kids run down with their iPad and little kindergartners saying, "The University of Florida tweeted me." The coolest thing ever, that my kindergartners can speak in college terms, that they recognize, and that they are connecting and starting to build that. So trying to empower my teachers to get themselves out there and really meeting them where they are. I'm trying super hard to stay cognizant of that. Some of them are way past that, and some of them have never been on the Twitters, and so we're taking it slow for those that need it and running with those that are already running.
Very good. Brad?
Yeah, so for innovation is so many different things. I think it's like crushing the status quo. It's blatantly disregarding what a lot of people think is impossible. The audience of this show, Greg, if we are as school leaders holding the same assemblies and they look the same and feel the same and are communicated the same as they were last year and 5 years ago, it's an epic fail. It's unacceptable as school leaders. We shouldn't be riding teachers' coattails. We should be their biggest cheerleaders, biggest support. We should ask tough questions. We should create this culture where it's very safe to fail and just model that openly. We had a PTA meeting, the last meeting, a month ago, and I was testing out Swivel. That's the little robotic camera droid that follows you around based on your lanyard that's on your neck. And I wanted to, I had a periscope going because I was testing it out for the assembly later that afternoon, and I wanted to make sure I had the comments feature locked down. There are two settings, so if you're going to check out Periscope, make sure you have the right comments one on. But anyways, as I was doing this at the PTA meeting, so I had Swivel going, I had a live stream Periscope, and then I was showing the PTA our augmented reality principal trading cards, just kind of seamlessly having this conversation. It's just how this culture that our teachers have created and our kids are creating together. And somebody later after the meeting said, do you realize what just happened in there? You know, you had a robotic droid camera operator live streaming the PTA meeting while you're talking about augmented reality trading cards. And I thought, yeah, that actually does sound like kind of a mouthful, but again, it's a culture thing, and that's a culture our kids deserve. Our kids don't need 10 years ago, because that was maybe what our present reality is. Our kids need us to be living at the least today, if not tomorrow. So that's innovation.
And you know, we're going to continue to talk a lot about being connected educators, but I mean, at the end of the day, everything that you're sharing tonight and that I will share tonight is about making connections with kids, making connections with families, and it's all about community engagement. And you're doing that whether you're blogging, using podcasting, whether you're using video, maybe e-newsletters. I mean, there's a wide variety of ways that you can enhance your ability to make those connections. And, you know, Michael, we first met through a mutual friend, Jeff Bradbury, and I think everyone knows Jeff is the founder and the host of TeacherCast, and I would consider him to be my podcasting guru, but he really turned me on to what you were doing in your school district with podcasting, which I think is amazing. Can you just kind of take a little time and kind of walk us through how that began and what the goal was?
Sure, yeah. So probably like everybody here and everybody watching, I obsessively come up with new, quite out-of-reach goals for myself every year. I pick something unachievable and I go for it. And 2 years ago, that was podcasting. It was a new concept for everyone in our school and our community. And I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do one podcast a week. And I started small, editing it on my phone on GarageBand, and then it grew and it grew and it grew. And one day I posted this podcast of a preschooler talking about the sand table that he was playing at. And the next day I looked and it had over 2,000 plays, and parents were talking to me about it and all sorts of great things. And I realized that it was really connecting with people. And then I started having conversations with teachers, and they were saying, this is great. I feel appreciated when you come in and you do a podcast about what I'm doing in Writer's Workshop or what I'm doing in the classroom. And then I did an episode about parent conferences, and I asked a parent to be in the episode, and I asked them, what do you find valuable about parent conferences and what don't you? And it started this whole conversation with staff, and it was at that point that I realized that doing these things was not an addition to my job. It was making my job better. It was making me a better leader in so many ways, because I was digging deeper into topics. I was sharing examples with my staff. I was making connections with other schools and other leaders. I was learning how to do things that other people were doing. And so it stopped being an extra and started being the way that we get things done. And that was a really powerful moment. And from there, podcasting just bloomed. And I have this little obsession with audio, even though I've been doing more video lately than audio. But I just think when you take away a lot of the stimulus and you just listen, and you just listen well, it's a pretty powerful experience.
And you know, there are going to be a lot of school leaders out there listening tonight, and they're going to say, hey, you know, that's really cool. I want to find out more about what Michael's doing. But the big question is going to be, and we may get that tonight on Twitter, is how do you actually do it? I mean, how difficult is it? How time-consuming is it? Are you using an iPad? What are you actually doing to get this done?
So I always tell people it can go from a range of extremely simple to complex, and as you get more comfortable with it, you'll move along that scale. But you know, on the simplest level, using your iPhone memo app, you can get some amazing audio from a classroom. And there's no shortage of material. That's the amazing thing. You can go out in the hallway, and like Brad had said, walk upon 3 kids doing something in the hallway, and you've got this amazing little snippet of what's going on in your school, and it's so valuable to share. People can't support what they don't know. So if you don't get it out there, they can't support it. And I think so to answer your question, you can start with an iPhone and just record the audio and host it on SoundCloud or something like that, really simple. Or you can get into GarageBand and start to add music and tracks and blending and all sorts of things. And there's great supports out there for that. Certainly anything on TeacherCast, you can find everything on there. And then you can get into where we are, where we're using a field mic to capture really good audio and using GarageBand to edit it and make it nice and smooth and accessible for people. My goal is to get it to a point where people are listening to it like Radiolab or something like that. They really just enjoy hearing it in a narrative storytelling way, finding that story to share.
And the podcast piece can be audio or it can be video. I mean, I consider the Goin Digital show to be a podcast, and I promote it that way. And Brad, I know you've had great success with video. Can you just talk about some of the innovative things you've done with video? And I know you get a lot of questions about how you're doing it and why you're doing it.
Sure. Let me just do a prelude here. Bring this back to kids. This is really all about the kids, and I love what Michael said. It's not extra work. This is the work. Today's instructional leaders, this is the work. There's really no excuse. I was talking to a student in another district. I think she was in 4th grade, and she shared that this year was the first year she was able to touch a Chromebook at her school. And I think that's a travesty, and I think we're grossly missing the mark. And I'm just reflecting, and I don't know this, I don't know enough about the district to be able to answer this question, but I can't help but think that that's a leadership issue. That's not a teaching issue. If that school or that district has a principal that's committed to learning how to podcast, the kids will have that opportunity. So why do I podcast? How do I do it? It is for the kids and to make sure that story is never told in our school or in our district. I use TouchCast. That's my preferred app, and I would just say just start. I mean, turn the thing on, hit go. It'll buzz down 3, 2, 1. You record, you pump it out, make it a minute long, just sharing something, anything. It really doesn't matter, but you just got to start. Our podcasts have evolved a little bit over time. We're at a point now where it's part of the vernacular or culture of our school. We have kids creating podcasts. We have teachers doing some really neat things. The culmination here this summer was we had a flipped open house where every single teacher and grade level created a series of videos to go over some curriculum and kind of get to know you stuff. We pumped it out a few weeks before the actual open house. So when families came in, it was pure relationships and it was connecting and loving on their kids, and they were able to ask better questions because we had given them some information that usually we might sit them through at open house. So yeah, we'll let Amber go.
And before I get to Amber, Brad, I mean another big piece of the video that you're doing in your school district is you're making it fun. You're making it engaging. And like the All-Star press conference that you did that kind of went viral there for a little while. I mean, you just made it fun, and you treated those new teachers like professional athletes, and the kids were asking questions like what's their favorite lunch or what's their favorite recess activity. But I mean, that has to be a big part of the thought process when you're putting those type of things together.
Yeah, and it all really goes back to the theme of the show where, innovative educators are connected educators. So the press conference idea I got from Joe Sanfilippo. He shared it, and I thought, that's a lot of fun. Instead of typing a newsletter that announces the names of our new teachers, we'll do a mock draft and announce everyone as a first-round pick and have kids ask questions, and it was awesome. So,
yeah. And Amber, I know your school I think this is year 1 for a new school-wide iPad launch. So obviously you have kids that have devices at the ready, and are they creating things? Do you envision them creating things like podcast and video?
Absolutely, they absolutely are. I told our teachers that the first big thing that I wanted them to keep in mind is that I want us to think of those 3 C's. I want them creating, I want them collaborating, I want them communicating, and that was where we were going to get to because that initially freaked them out. So I told my staff that we were allowed to walk, we were allowed to tiptoe, we just weren't allowed to move backwards, and really try to work them through the SAMR model. And right now, letting them know that I'm okay with substitution. That's what we're doing. Kid taking notes in class, let them take it on an app. Kids writing a story, let them write it on the app. Not to get crazy. And again, keeping in mind that you've got some that are walking, some that are running. And we introduced a reflective blog amongst our staff. We have 2 campuses in the district piloting these iPads. It's 5 per classroom plus 1 for the teacher, K4, including my specials teachers, including my ESL teacher. Just every adult in my building has this opportunity to really help immerse my kiddos in this digital world that we live in. So we have this reflective blog, and we went through and gave every teacher a week. And that week, the teacher is responsible for sharing either a really great idea or something that was disastrous, allowing them to really articulate, here's what I tried, here's what was awesome, here's what wasn't so awesome, so that teachers who were very trepidatious about allowing students to create or communicate could kind of see some things that had already gone well or some things that had already gone wrong. So it's this consistent learning platform. We have access to the other campuses blog. They're doing the same thing. And so that's 2 different sets of teachers, people that you're comfortable with, people that you don't even know, that you're able to kind of get a feel for where they are, what they're doing, how it's going for them, maybe get some ideas. And watching my teachers come back in and say, hey, did you see that Miss Christian wrote about Kahoot? Do you think we could get someone in to model that for me? I don't want to do it by myself, but could someone come help me? Well, that wasn't from me pushing and sharing and forcing it. It was from another teacher, one of their peers in the trenches with kindergartners that was making it happen. So the blog has just been amazing. I'm a big fan of reflective writing. I love to blog. I try to blog. Not done well this year. Not as good as Brad, so to speak. But I'm getting stuff out there and hopefully modeling for my teachers. I'm just as busy. I'm just as tired. I have just as many stressful days, but it is therapeutic. It is a worthwhile thing for us to put ourselves out there and reflect, if for no other reason. I'm hoping I'm tagging all my stuff right now the first year, because my second year I'm going to come back and remember everything that I went through and can come back in and really kind of remind myself how far we've all come, and that's really what I want our teachers to do too.
And I think it's so important that we touch on this collaborative piece. And Brad, you and I were talking a little bit before the show started that you're now doing collaborative podcasts or videos with other school districts and getting other kids involved. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, a few years ago, Tony Sinanis, John Fritzky, and I combined our schools through asynchronous collaboration. So we would agree on themes throughout the year, and the kids would have to find ways to somehow connect these random videos so they made sense to the audience. And it's been just a ton of fun and great relationship builder with kids. But remember, we had one project where we came up with this squiggle line. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's like a gifted and talented project. You give a kid a squiggle. Actually, you give every kid the same exact squiggle. They transform it into fish and ninjas and whatever they see on the sheet of paper. But we took that to a podcast and did it digitally. And actually, there were schools in Italy and all across the country that did the very same squiggle we did. Our kids actually ended up winning TouchCast Best Educast or something and getting some free sound equipment. But the coolest thing was to see blogs and newspaper articles written in languages we couldn't even understand, because people across the world were connected to this collaborative, tri-state experience that our kids had. So,
and everyone on the panel tonight has a blog, and I would say a successful blog. I read all of them. And if you talk to school leaders out there, in your opinion, why is it important to have that space where maybe it's more than 140 characters on Twitter, where you can actually, put it out there, what you believe, how you think things should change, or, just kind of walk me through why do you blog and what do you blog about? Michael, let's start with you.
I think it goes to what Amber had shared about people knowing you. A couple years ago, in my first principalship, I got the feedback that people didn't know who I was. And it really stuck with me. They didn't know anything about me. They didn't know what I valued. They didn't know about my wife and family, and just the little things. They didn't have the chance for those interactions. And since I've started blogging, it amazes me. It always amazes me when somebody says, hey, I read your blog. First, I don't believe them, but then they do. And they always say that it's great to just know you, just to feel that connection. And that's probably the most powerful part about blogging. And then second to that is just the connections that come from it, the comments and the learning that you do in connecting with other people that blog. But even like silly things like sharing, putting my dog on a sled on Instagram. I have parents come up and say, that's great. I love seeing that stuff, to be able to know a little bit more about you. And that goes a long way when you're establishing relationships as a leader in an educational community.
Amber, tell us about your history as a blogger.
Well, it started, I worked in the technology department and was a technology facilitator for 17 campuses. And so it really became the place where I could share the great things that I was seeing, brag on my teachers, share the different resources. And that was like 7 years ago. So then it evolved into more of a leadership thing. And like Brad said, I love that blogging isn't something that I do extra. Blogging is what I do as part of my job. Like, that to me is crucial. It's following other leaders. It's reflecting on what other leaders have shared, reflecting on things that went well for me, things that didn't go well for me. And kind of like Michael said, it's always a surprise when someone says, oh, I read her blog, I follow your blog, because I almost treat it as something for myself. Like, it's my journal. It is my online diary. It's my professional recollection of where I was and what I was doing, and being able to go back through and see where different places I've been, how I have grown, or the things that I tried and the things that I can bring forward. It's just very important to me, and it does allow my teachers. I don't push it out towards my campus necessarily, but I know some of my teachers read it, and I think they appreciate some of my pausings and my musings of situations. And obviously I don't get into big, huge detail necessarily, but things that I do to appreciate teachers, things that I do to brag on kids, things like that I'm sharing, hoping that somebody like Brad or Michael can see and say, oh, we did something similar, or I love this idea, I'm gonna tweak it and make it happen like this. Things along those lines. I think I can't imagine not doing my job and having all of these people, this system that you have, and a blog allows those connections to become deeper and more personal, and it's no longer just being connected. These people are my friends now. Like, I get to call them literally and say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you walk me through this? And there's a vested connection. I just don't know how leaders do that without having that system.
And if you go to Amber's blog now, you'll see that she has the hashtag the first year, which I think is a great way to that diary you were talking about. You can document all the trials and tribulations of that first year in that new school. And I assume you're also using that via Twitter. Is that right?
I am, absolutely. Anything I push out on from that blog, it does automatically jump to Twitter. And I have to give George Kuros credit. He's the one who said, you better be writing down every single thing that happens to you this year and making sure that you keep track so you know exactly how far you've come. He's a big supporter, and I appreciate his insight. If I did not give him credit, he would also call me out on it.
Now, Brad, do you have a blogging strategy? Do you have set a goal for yourself, or what's your thought process on a day-to-day basis as to what you want, the content you want to put out?
Mm-hmm. Well, I set the bar really low. I do at least one post a month, and I always make it. So, I was thinking as Michael and Amber were talking, why do I blog? I think I blog to amplify student voice. I blog to celebrate the people I work with. I think the work is too important, too critical, and people around here and across the country are working too hard not to have some level of transparency where parents in the community and businesses understand what we do and why we care. I think that's part of it. I think there's another part that's maybe a little deeper and maybe subconscious. You guys just flushed it out. So I feel like I'm on a couch here. I feel like I've benefited so much from reading people's blogs like Amber and like George, that in some ways I feel like I have a little bit of a responsibility to share some of the ideas and work that our teachers and kids and that I'm helping with, because I think it'll make a difference for other kids. I think that's reciprocated across the country, so that's probably another reason I do it. I don't have a strategy. I try to have fun. I try to integrate some video.
And we all know the importance of student voice. That's been brought up a few times. And what are your thoughts on allowing your students to blog or allowing them to create their own digital content? And how do you go about making that happen in your school district? Michael?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Brad said, is just by modeling it, it becomes a part of the context of the school. I've been amazed by the difference between in the past where you would do kind of a top-down decision with teachers and how that would filter out or wouldn't filter out. And now when you truly model something, it just becomes okay. And so the way that I encourage the student voice is by jumping in. If a teacher says, hey, I think I want to do, like today, a teacher said to me, I have a student that wants to do book reviews. So I was like, great, I will help. I'll be right there. Let's get down there. And so we set up the Chromebook, and we learned how to use WeVideo with the student, and we did I'll do anything I can to knock down the hurdles for that to happen and to support the teacher and the kid in doing that. And I think that that's one of the best ways that you can do it, is just jump right in and just support the heck out of it.
Okay, Brad, let's jump to you. Let's talk a little bit about student voice and how you want to create those opportunities for your kids.
Sure. I'm kind of just a side quip. I wonder if before paper was invented, people were really scared to actually give kids paper and pencils. Like, they could write something down and like it could blow away in the wind and someone else could read it. I don't know if that actually happened, but I don't know, some people call this the YouTube generation, but are we not kidding ourselves if we don't give the YouTube generation safe and scaffolded experiences to actually publish to YouTube and to consume from YouTube? I mean, there's a huge disconnect. A lot of people in education get maybe not offended, but they like to consider school the real world. And I'm all for that, but let's not kid ourselves. It has to be the real world, and we have to have congruent tools and ways to communicate that kids have access to outside of school. So, I mean, that's my philosophy in a nutshell. If we're going to truly amplify student voice, it's not giving them a pencil every single day in every single class and asking them to fill in a worksheet. That's not it.
Great point. Amber?
I love this. I love this topic because I have a 13-year-old, and she was a part of a panel for our Region 10 service center last year, and one of the things that she said that made me want to stand up and clap, not just because she's my kid, but she said that the one thing I've learned from my mom is that nothing lasts forever except everything that's on the internet. And she's 13, and they think that she's too young to have these conversations with at school, and so they're not really taking place. And then you get to high school, and they're not having a conversation with you. They're not listening to what the adults and the teachers and people have to say because they've been doing it for 3 years, so they don't need any help from us. I tell my teachers, we have got to be in the spaces where they are, and we have to be modeling appropriate use. And if we do not give them a platform in which to share their successes, then they're not going to know that space to be anything other than a place to have troubles. And I don't want them to think of Instagram or Facebook as a place where you get on and you're ugly or you're inappropriate or any of those things. I want them to see that as a place where we brag and where we share and where we think about what we say and we double check our spelling and we recognize how we're coming across to the world. These are conversations that my kindergarten classes are having now. And I love that because if they think, hold on, we got to spell check that. We don't want that other kindergarten class in Wisconsin to think we can't spell our words. That's the kind of conversation that I want my kids to have starting when they're 5. Because when they're 15, maybe they have a different mindset about what these tools can and should be used for and can use them responsibly, they can use them maturely, they can use them to make a difference, which is what Student Voice is all about. They have amazing, intelligent, mature things to say and share, and if they don't have a space in which to do it, then where is it happening? Right now, Twitter, if you go on any close to a snow day and read some of the things that they say, you get why people are concerned. But again, it's because they don't have someone there helping model and lead the way. That Kevin Honeycutt quote, say that 7 times. They're all at a digital recess and nobody's on playground duty. Where are the adults in these spaces? Where are the people calling you out? Patrick Larkin, wasn't it him or Jason Markey that went on and said, hey, look at what you're saying. Is this how you want to come across? I can track you down to where you are. Is that the image? Is that the representation that you want to give to the world of who you are? We got to start calling kids out in a responsible way and modeling it for them from us elementary principals. I think is a really great place to start.
Well, I think that's a great point. Yeah, kudos, Amber.
Yeah, that was awesome. You got me all fired up.
But let's dive in a little bit deeper if we can. I mean, we all agree that that's a situation that we're in. But what is our responsibility as schools and as school leaders and as teachers? And how do we teach them how to be responsible on social media? I mean, is there a program that you have in place in your school? Do you just deal with teachable moments? what's the process?
Well, like that speaker that made the comment this week about staying off of social media because you can get yourself in so much trouble. I think that there have been some unintelligent comments made by educators forever. Now we just have a very vocal public platform in which they're being shared. So I think that it starts there. As the principal, I need to make sure my teachers know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Are we having those conversations with our teachers about, this is what you could and should be posting? These are the things that you may get questioned on. These are the things that you could receive some pushback on. Let's be careful because it's a public space, and that's not where you want to be talking about some of those kinds of things. And from there, are we using Twitter in the classroom? What are we sharing? Modeling, letting teachers take risks, but not throwing them in the pool without teaching them how to swim. And that's, I think, the biggest concern is that there aren't systems in place in a lot of places that are teaching these educators, here's what we could and shouldn't do. Maybe we should start there and then let that trickle down and be modeled for our students.
Great point. Michael?
Yeah, I think another thing to highlight is that when we model this and our teachers model this, we're not just modeling it for the students. Families and communities are seeing how we can responsibly use social media, and it builds trust. I have seen a shift in the way that parents use social media because of the work that we've done. I guarantee it, because we're showing that it can be a place for celebration, can be a place of positivity, and a place of appropriateness and trust. And I think that that is a really important part of it, because if we're modeling for the community at large, then that's going to support our students beyond the school day and beyond the school setting even more in the use of social media.
Your thoughts, Brad?
If you replace social media, if you call it learning media, I think that's all, takes a lot of the mystery out of it, and that's how we try to use it. So again, I think the entry point, and maybe there's a parallel to the Sammer model here, the substitution, instead of kind of the high fives and hugs that a teacher might do during morning meeting as kids are coming in. Social media can celebrate some of that positive stuff, but at a deeper level, the power, the collaborative capabilities that social media can really inspire are unparalleled. And when we talked earlier tonight about a connected pedagogy, that's pure innovation, because it doesn't really exist right now. The four of us and our colleagues across the country and the teachers we're working with, we're inventing a connected pedagogy. Our technology teacher is in with the PTA in the Media Center right now talking about this very subject, and he mentioned before I left the hashtag EduDrone Challenge. So we have these quadcopters at our school, and kids are inventing challenge courses using math standards, Common Core math standards, to deeply show their learning, to collaborate, to post the challenges on a hashtag so schools across the country can actually participate and try to crack those challenges and then share back with us. And to me, that's how it's done. Social media is learning media, and if we ground it in that and we live life above the worksheet, and then embrace the teachable moment, kids are going to do amazing, really amazing things. The little bit of advice that I have to give myself sometimes, if something bad happens in school with a device, sometimes even I hit the panic button, like, oh my gosh, we've got to take that thing away for whatever, a week or a month, or what will their parents say? But the reality is, I tell myself, Brad, if that were a pencil, would you be saying the same thing? And the answer is no. I would teach them. There'd be some discipline involved, but I have to calm down sometimes. And if I know that sometimes I get caught up in the digital discipline and stuff, we know that people who are scared of certain bad things happening on social media will as well. So teachable moments are just these ongoing things. We've got to talk about them. And I love what Amber said, that even in the blog, sharing failures is so critical, because that builds a culture where learning media can actually happen. It can't just be failure and then unplug.
And I think all of us have opportunities to go out and present or to speak to different to groups or organizations or at conferences. And I don't know what your experience has been like, but at the end, you always have the 10-minute wrap up for questions, and inevitably it always comes back to, well, what if? What if this happens? What if that happens? And there's still this fear factor about, do we want to go down that road? And I always tell people in a polite way, I hope, number one, you can't be afraid of things that haven't actually happened yet. And number two, sometimes you just have to take a chance. We can always come up with reasons why we should not do something, but maybe we should focus on the positive outcomes and less on possible negative outcomes. Do you guys have that same experience when you go out and speak? And what response would you give? Brad?
I'm not sure who said this. It might have been Kuros, or maybe even Sinanis. What's the best thing that can happen? We've got to ask that question too. Just to use like a simple outlet as an analogy, a lot of bad things can happen if you're messing around with an outlet, or However, imagine all the other things you can plug in, and do we not use electricity or outlets because of the danger, or do we do amazing things and then teach safety at a very young age? We have a technology specialist in our district named Dave Zucker, and he uses a bike helmet analogy. When do you teach a kid to wear a bike helmet? It's not in middle school and it's not in high school. That's not going to happen. But when they're in kindergarten, if you get them on the bike, you hold them for a while, you release them, they're wearing a helmet, really great things are going to happen. I think there are a lot of parallels here to that, Greg.
How do you answer that question, Michael?
It's tricky. I think that I get a little bit salty when I get asked that question, and it's hard not to. Usually because it's people that have no knowledge or experience with what they're asking about. They haven't jumped into the pool themselves as leaders to test it, to see. But one thing I point them back to, I kind of redirect them to, is another Kuros quote where he talks about isolation in this day and age is a choice. It's a conscious decision on the part of an educator to be isolated. And I always bring that back to that point. And I think that that's a good entry point. And I also talk about themselves as leaders exploring it before they even get to the kid part. And that kind of moves it forward. Like, how can you use this in your practice? And then they'll start to see the light as they go through.
Quick question. Hey, Amber, have we met our Kuros mention quota for tonight? Is that
I'm sure, but my check should be getting here any minute.
Yeah, exactly. He better not give you a time.
You better be on it.
We need to get him on the Goin Digital show, so feel free to reach out. Amber, we talked also before we came on air, and you're going to present at the What Connected Educators Do Differently in Chicago, I think this weekend, and our good buddy Jeff Zuhl is going to be there. And be sure to tell Jeff and Mike Lubefeld and all the Chicago crew we said hello from Goin Digital. But tell us a little bit about what you're going to present about when you go to the Windy City, and do you think you're going to get some of these questions about what if?
You always do, and it's honestly my favorite part of the conversation, because I truly think that if you buy in any facet to what we're talking about here, which is that you need to build relationships, you need to make connections, and you cannot do that in 2015 without some sort of technology component. And whatever argument you want to give me, I will combat it. And that's what I say is, give me, what is it? What do you got? Because there's always a hand, and then as soon as the floodgates open, let's go. So I just try to realistically take away the excuses, because that's what it is. We're making excuses. The things that you want to focus on and that you think are important, you find a way to make happen. And we have parents that are digital. Joe Mazza talks about meeting them where they are, high need, low need, even in the digital world. And I've got parents who can't go through a Thursday folder, but they can check a Twitter stream. They can't go through and read a newsletter, but they can watch a video and hear what their kids are learning about. And I want to meet those parents' needs just as much as I want to meet the traditional mom who wants to go through her Thursday folders Thursday afternoon for however many hours it takes her. So I'm going to be talking about making those connections between home and campus, and how you can really solidify getting your vision and getting your message across, and how it is all of these things. It's all of these little things that if you read the blog, and if you follow the tweets, and if you follow the Facebook pages, I'm all about kids. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for kids, and you can't take part in all of these different things and think that my motive is anything other than wanting your kids to be the very best that they can be. And that's why I do this. That's why I work from 5:45 until 8 o'clock some nights, because I want kids to be the very best they can be, and that means my teachers have to be the very best they can be, which means as their leader, I have to help make that happen. We'll be talking about using SMORE or using videos, and I will be highlighting all of these really great notes that I've taken tonight from these three super smart guys. But how can you start to build those connections, and that it's okay to take baby steps? Inevitably, the first thing, Greg, that people want to say is, well, what are you going to do when they start complaining? What are you going to do on Facebook when you have it open and people are just saying negative things? Turn it off. Start one way. Start with a one-way communication. Have your page just be a place where you get to brag and share on awesome things, and then open it up. Because realistically, honestly, I don't know that I've talked to principals who have this as a problem, who genuinely care and are involved. They're not getting blasted on Facebook. That's not the place where people are calling them out and saying negative things and owning up to that there. So I just try to break it down step by step by step, how they can ease their way into these digital waters before drowning or thinking they're going to drown.
And I think that's great advice from everybody. And, you know, before I'm having some feedback here, so I apologize if you can hear that. But I think one of the things we need to kind of switch gears and talk about is innovation's not just about digital tools and how you're using technology in the classroom. You can also be an innovative school leader in how you conduct meetings. And Brad, you kind of hit on that earlier. You know, thinking outside the box a little bit, having flipped faculty meetings, just in how you organize your day and how you go about your day as a school leader. I mean, there's innovation in all different shapes and forms. So what are some of the things you do in your schools that maybe you want to share that you might be helpful to new principals? Brad, let's start with you.
I would say just trying to embrace an innovator's mindset, and I've heard other people who will remain nameless talk about that, but asking questions like why do we do that, and how might we do it differently to solve whatever problems or areas of dissatisfaction that might be present. Just not accepting things for what they are and having the conversations and wading into the waters. For new principals, probably one of the many joys of my job is getting into teachers' classrooms and doing observations and giving having the conversation and feedback, the written and the verbal. But I always try to have some dream big goals at the end. It's instead of just the district rubric at the very bottom. We'll talk about a connected pedagogy and just explicitly name stuff that's not even necessarily. I don't want to say it's not on the district radar, but these are things that maybe in 5 or 10 years will be more common practice, but right now I want to talk about them with people because I know they can do it. I know our kids deserve it and need it. I know we want to be relevant, so I want to be the one leading and supporting those conversations. So maybe that's my advice. Seize every conversation as an opportunity to learn and then maybe even share a little.
Michael?
Yeah, I'd agree with what Brad said because he's wicked smart. But I would say that, you know, one of the biggest things is just to listen. Just to try and intentionally listen more than you talk sometimes, and also what Brad had said is not accepting everything at where it is because that's where it is, and thinking about everything and how you can continue to evolve and develop that, and also involving and enabling and empowering the teachers and the kids in that work. It's amazing what happens when you let them go. 9 times out of 10, they're going to know more than I'm going to know about what's best for kids or what's best for them in that environment, and just me allowing them or enabling them or supporting them and getting going and making that change is one of the most powerful things I could do. Great.
Amber?
I think letting teachers take chances, wherever they want to do, whatever they want to do, making sure that it's okay to take that chance, to take that risk, and that we're going to support them because some things go right and some things go wrong. But that's where the sweet spot is. You want to be able to learn from those mistakes, and I think that them being allowed to take those chances. I have a teacher who's wanting to do Genius Hour this year, and she's a testing grade level, and so that's a risk. And her having to be able to balance getting kids ready for a standardized test. You know, Texas, we have our own little set of standards, not the Common Core. It's got to be different. She's got standards that she's got to have ready by the end of May, and that's a critical conversation. It's not just about making kids feel good and, you know, playing with Legos sometimes. We got to teach them. We have standards. We have a system, albeit I think we'd all agree that it may be broken, but we still have a system that we exist in that we have to get our job done. And teaching my teachers how to balance that between preparing for a test at the end of the year but still taking risks, that's pretty darn innovative.
I would agree. And Brad, let's talk just a little bit as we kind of wind down the hour about the professional development piece. I know you're the author of an outstanding book on professional development, and if you think in terms of innovation, I know a lot of us have kind of jumped on the EdCamp bandwagon, and I absolutely love EdCamp. I think it's a great way to provide you know, that information that teachers want and need. But what are your general thoughts about PD, and how can school leaders kind of organize and facilitate that in a more meaningful way?
Sure. So thanks. The book is Personalized PD, and I think one of the basic premises is there is no one way to do PD. I think we will have succeeded when we shift the learning power to our staff and we build their capacity, or when we set them free and kind of get out of their way and help them begin to think that it's okay, instead of it feeling so foreign when they actually have a little bit of choice and voice. I think we probably beat that out of people. Not all teachers, but just systemically. So here at Greenwood, the PD team, this isn't just me, but we just try to ask people what they want, and then we try to deliver for them, or have our staff deliver for them, or give them space and time to listen and collaborate. So whether that means offering 3 sessions after school instead of just one staff meeting, or flipping it, providing a little bit of information via video or an article ahead of time, and then having grade levels have conversations about that together, it varies. It looks different from year to year.
And Michael, how has your PD strategy changed in your school? Are you actually creating time for teachers to learn how to podcast?
Well, stuff like that seems to happen a little more impromptu, but what's great about it is now that it's very open and people are very willing. So it's a lot of embedded time, me going in the classroom and supporting projects, which in a way is probably the best way to deliver that as a PD component. But it's also about continuing to offer it. So always offering to be able to share this, I'll be happy to come in, those kinds of things. But we've done a lot with our PD to spread it out throughout the year so that it's not one and done kind of model, and a lot of embedded in the classroom kind of coaching components with teachers, and they've really responded very well to that and said that this is great. This feels very meaningful to be in the classroom with them doing it.
And Amber, with a new iPad initiative in your building or buildings, how has that changed what you're doing this year?
Well, we have a very strong PLC culture at our campus, and I'm trying to add some tech talk to that. I want them, again, the goal is for these technology conversations to not be separate, but that it's involved in your purposeful planning, that when we're looking at our instructional documents, our instructional focus, that we are looking for ways that they can integrate. And we tried to start with a few tools, and just very basic, the Poplet and the Padlet and things like that, Pit Collage, and then letting them look through the curriculum and say, I really like this one. It fits here, here, and here. That's how I'm going to try it this week. I've got some awesome learning specialists that are there and able to support and come in and model lessons. I'm trying hard to get in and assist teachers with small groups as needed, but kind of just keeping it as a focus and as a topic of conversation. My weekly staff newsletter, I try to send out a tech tip, which again, I just want them to constantly be revisiting what it looks like, what it could look like, and how we can support and offer help where we can.
I think to add to what Amber said, teachers are so smart and they understand authentic leadership. So if we're not walking the walk, we can send all the tech tips we want, but it's like, come on, you hypocrite. But I know Amber's not like that. She is walking the walk, so she has, street cred or ed cred or whatever you want to call it. We've got to be doing this stuff so that we can do what Michael's doing and volunteer to go in classes and say, hey, I'll help. I'd be happy to help with some book talk videos and help your kiddos upload them to YouTube. We have to be doing that stuff. It's really a non-negotiable, and I kind of scratch my head when I'm starting to, the people who aren't doing it, they're really good people and it worked really well for a long time, but they've got to embrace that lead learner role and get in the game for our kids, and we have to help them. It's not about judgment, but the bar has been raised for school principals and educational leaders. Now we've just got to get there. No excuse.
Very well said, Brad. And as we wrap up the show tonight, I certainly want to thank all of you for being here. It's been a great discussion, and I know school leaders that are watching tonight or that will come back and watch the YouTube video or the archives are going to get a lot out of it. So as we close tonight, if you could, let's just go around the horn one more time. Tell us where we can find you on social media, maybe where we can buy the book, Brad, maybe where you're going to be speaking at this fall, and just tell us where we can find your blog, anything you can think of. Amber, let's go back to you.
All right, well, I am Amber8 on Twitter, and I love to have conversations there, so definitely find me. You can find my blog at amberteeman.com. That's TEAMANN.com. And this weekend, if you're in Chicago, come see me. We'll be at the What Connected Educators Do Differently. So apparently there's some good pizza to be found, so tweet me if you know of a great place. And connect with me via Twitter or my blog.
All right, great. Michael, where can we find you?
I'm at Principal Barry on Twitter and Instagram, and my blog is principalbarry.wordpress.com, and on there are links to all the podcasts and videos and things like that.
Very good. Okay, Brad?
Yeah, I would say go to hashtag GWGreats. That stands for Greenwood Greats, Greats, and there's tons of different teachers from our school that are sharing really amazing stuff, and I'm on there too, but you'll, I know I learn a lot every time I go to the hashtag, so check it out.
Well, I'm just so appreciative of having such wonderful school leaders on the show tonight, and I really appreciate your time. And before we sign off tonight, I do want to make a few quick announcements about the Goin Digital show. We are back on Tuesday, October 27th, and the show title will be Restoring Optimism in Public Education. We have 3 amazing school superintendents, Dan Frazier, John Carver, and Kevin Case, and those 3 guys will be here to talk about just public perception about education. Then on November 10th, we're going to be talking about Future Ready, and we're going to have Tom Murray, Scott Rocco, and Jimmy Cassis. So we have an all-star lineup the next couple shows, so we hope you can come back and tune in. We also have exciting news. The Goin Digital show is in the process of being available on iTunes and on Stitcher, so check back with us, and we hope you'll be able to get those audio downloads pretty quickly. Tomorrow night, Oscar is back on Teachers Talk Live at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. I will actually be a guest tomorrow night, so if you're in the digital space tomorrow, drop by teachcow.com. We're going to talk about how to have those difficult conversations in a school setting, so we're looking forward to doing that. So, again, thanks to our guest, a great show. I wish all of you a wonderful school year. And folks, if you're watching tonight, please connect with these 3 amazing school leaders. And until next time, we're signing off here on the Goin Digital Show. Good night, everyone.